The next part of the book, from roughly chapters 23 through chapters in the mid-50s, is about where the battle per se, about the actual fighting, about the disposition of troops, about the places where the Russians held forth longer and where the Germans sought to break through. It is the Battle of Tannenberg on a very micro level. This is the part of the book where you are tempted to get lost in the details, to drown in a sea of new people or old people. Let us drill down a bit in these chapters to understand their place in the book, and then to understand the battle as such. First, their place in the book. These chapters track the previous chapters about the strategic blunders and the problems with the Russian regime facing modern warfare. Not much new ground in the argument is made here, but the fatal errors of the Russian regime come home to roost here, vividly and in practice. We see the Germans using airplanes for reconnaissance, not the Russians. We see the Russians with poor coordination and communications, not the Germans. We see the Russians with time servers as leaders, once again, not the Germans. We see a modern German army against a quasi-modern, under-equipped Russian army. The peasants of the Russian army do have spirit, but the leaders do not have what it takes. As I say, not much new ground in the argument is made here. We will talk about the new ground of the various characters in the next videos. Vertenstev comes across as the leader of the new Russians in this section, with some help from a couple of his core commanders. Solzhenitsyn gives us a survey of human types in this section, of different kinds of commanders and their suitability for their positions, and different kinds of peasants. This portion of the book is very interesting as a survey of human types under the old regime and under the pressures of war. More on this in the next video. Second, let us see this portion of the book in the context of the battle as a whole. The big move of the Battle of Tannenberg is on the German side, and it is surveyed in chapters 23 and 24, where Solzhenitsyn discusses who should get credit for the big move, and he brings forth the character of General Francois. The big move is the transferring of the German army from up here in the north, by the Baltic Sea, to the southern part of the theater. We can see this on the map, that the Russians had divided their army into two big armies, with the first army in the north and the second army under General Samsonov in the south. The Germans left a small force here in front of General Rennenkampf of the first army. Rennenkampf didn't know what was going on and did nothing facing such a small army. The Russian Second Army under General Samsonov was heading up to get behind the army that was in front of General Rennenkampf. The Russians planned to surround the Germans and to crush them like a fish egg. The Germans, however, brought down the bulk of their army under General Francois south and instead surrounded the Russians' Second Army. This led to the elimination of General Samsonov's Second Army and the utter and humiliating defeat. By the time we get to chapter 23, this encircling movement of the Germans is underway and being experienced at various points in the battlefield. It is not exactly mop-up duty for the Germans yet. They had to smash their way through the Russians. But it is a part of the book where the Russians come to realize that they are surrounded and defeated. It is the part of the book where this happens in, shall we say, real time. The micro level of the battle is where this encircling takes place. Some Russians continue to advance, and they are doing so without knowing that they are walking into a trap. We will see them fighting. We will see them falling back. Some are flanked. Some are worried about being flanked. Regardless, this is the situation of the Russians. Now, this more particular or specific map reveals the situation and may help to illuminate this section very well. You will be able to see what a beautiful storyteller Solzhenitsyn is. Perhaps only with the benefit of maps can you grasp what is going on here. Let us match up some of this stuff. Chapter 25 concerns the Battle of Uzda, or Soldau, which is down here. And it concerns the Russian left flank, or the southernmost part of the Russian army, Corps number 1, right here. This is where Vortenstev and the placeholder general Artamonov beat back the Germans a little bit, only to learn that the rest of their army on their flanks and behind them are retreating. Vortenstev goes from the ecstasy of total fulfillment to having a sinking feeling typical of the Russian army in action as they fall back. You can also grasp what the Russians do in the battle. You can see that a line eventually will go through where Artamonov's army was and will get behind the Russian army later on. More on this in the chapters ahead. Chapter 26 tells the other side of the story, the side of the Russian advance toward Allenstein, which is right here in the upper right-hand corner of the battlefield. General Kryulev is the Russian general, and he is under orders to allow the railroads that meet in Allenstein to remain intact. He will do nothing to disturb them. Here again, the map illuminates what is going on in the chapter. A subordinate general, a subordinate to General Kryulev, General Pavushkin is his name, suggests that instead of attacking Allenstein, the 13th Corps should fall back and help the 15th Corps to its immediate left. Kryulev corrects this insubordinate subordinate officer and chides him for going over his head with suggestions. General Kryulev had never been in warfare before and was under the impression that he was only going to be concerned about his own particular corps, not the overall plan, had there been one. Kryulev had sent a reconnaissance airplane to the north and the west of Allenstein, which is up here, to see what the Russians would be up against. The plane, however, did not fly low enough to get a good read on what army was marching toward Allenstein. Just assumed that it must be the Russian general from the north. Yet the chapter ends with two facts. This is the greatest Russian penetration into German territory, and the Russian lines have been fired on. A Russian plane has been shot down, and a reconnaissance group is shot at, fired, and many killed. All of this is wished away by the Russians. Our troops often make mistake by firing into their own men. Our planes often crash. Nothing to see here. Again, notice the significance of this particular section discussed in chapter 26. It is the right side of the Russian line, and eventually the Germans will have the top pincer come down and come through this area as they come to surround the Russians. Chapter 25 is about the left wing giving away. Chapter 26 is about the right wing giving away. It happens in different ways. It is incompetence and cowardice on the left, and it is wishful thinking on the right. Each, however, are Russian attributes. Chapter 27 is about General Nikolai Nikolaevich Martos, the most un-Russian, successful, energetic general we are exposed to. Martos is in charge of the 15th Corps, which is near enough to the Russian center. Martos uses aerial reconnaissance. He was the first Russian general to start veering leftward to meet the German advances. He was at a command post at the front, not in the rear. He was willing to take fire. He tried to coordinate his attacks with his neighboring generals. He is ordered to meet up with Kryulev in Allenstein in chapter 27. He is told, in other words, to move his army from here all the way up to here to support the attack on Allenstein. But he knows that this is the stupidest possible thing, and he refuses to do it. The chapter ends with headquarters belaying the order to Martos to move to Allenstein, and instead to have Kryulev's corps move to support Martos, because Martos has threatened to resign if that didn't happen. Martos knows what is going on. Chapter 28 is when the reality of encirclement comes home to General Samsonov. In the middle of the chapter, he realizes that his right arm up here has given way and has been amputated. At the end, in the last words of the chapter, he discovers that the left wing has been amputated. The chapter begins, however, with General Samsonov successfully finishing his movement of headquarters from the rear up here to Tannenberg. This is where, in Samsonov's mind, a dull anxiety about invisible, intangible things that were happening out there in a 75-mile radius of sand and forest, things which his staff officers were never in a hurry to report to him. First, he discovers, his generals, and the names are not really important, had not come to support Kluyev's attack on Allenstein. Up here, this action is reported to him, and no general is coming to help Kluyev here. The left seems in trouble, or the right seems in trouble. Then Samsonov gets word that Artmonov and Uzda down here on the other side. But Artmonov brags that he is holding firm as a rock and beating back the attacks of the Germans. Samsonov had long suspected that Artmonov was a careerist and a stupid ditherer, but he guesses and he hopes that what Artmonov has said is nevertheless true. Of course, there are no communication lines with that part of the front, but there is no reason to worry, I guess. Still, Samsonov is feeling slightly unwell. He finds it hard to breathe at dinner time. He feels as if he should be doing something essential, but he cannot figure out what it is. He was dissatisfied with himself. Finally, Samsonov runs into the retreating soldiers from here, from the 23rd Corps, which had been beaten back by a German attack, which you can see nicely on this map. And they fall back to Tannenberg. These troops are demoralized, but nevertheless still willing to give fight. This is the center giving out. Then, and to make matters worse, and to seal the doom for his army, it would seem, Samsonov receives a dispatch that Artmonov has been dishonest all day and that the left has given out. So, these 4 chapters, chapter 25, 26, 27, and 28, show the Russian defeat happening systematically, with the left giving out, then the right, then the center. Thus Solzhenitsyn turns his attention afterward to the peasants and the soldiers and the attempts that the Russians will make to break out. But we see what is going on here, and I dare say we can see the future of the Russian encirclement in these chapters.